Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Disclosure Day. Disclosure Day is a 2026 American science fiction thriller film. In the film, a cybersecurity expert and a meteorologist become unlikely allies as a mystery that could change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe unravels. This movie came out of nowhere. I am not one to watch trailers, so there is a lot of movies that come out that I know nothing about them, but I know that they are going to come out. This is a movie that really kind of surprised me. I'd heard nothing about it, especially being a Spielberg movie. That was shocking. I figured I would have heard that this movie was coming out at some point, but it didn't. So I had no idea what to feel going into this movie other than having the hope that Spielberg was going to make another great movie. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Let's get into why I was disappointed with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? The plot of this movie is honestly difficult because there are one or two good moments and good examples of storytelling, but it's kind of packed behind a bunch of garbage. Not very well written story. It really seems like Spielberg had one or two ideas that came to him and thought, wow, those would be really interesting. I want to shoot a movie with these scenes in them, and then tried to build a movie around those scenes. Now, of course, I don't know if that's really true, but that's what it felt like, because there's one or two great moments in this movie that feel like they're supposed to be in a great movie, but then the rest of the movie is honestly just not very interesting, not very good. It feels like they're just trying to give you slop to get to that next great scene because that's all they care about. For example, I really don't enjoy the bad guys of this movie. They feel very poorly written. It's a third-party agency that the government has hired to keep all of their secrets, right? And they've been around for a long time. Now, they just make a lot of decisions that don't make any sense. And I wouldn't really mind them if this was E.T., right? A family-friendly kind of movie where when a government agency or a secret agency makes kind of stupid decisions, you don't really care because of course they're going to. It's a kid's movie. It's a family movie. But this isn't set up to be that way. This is a movie that takes itself serious, so therefore you take it serious. And this agency, the whole movie is basically them trying to chase them down, and the whole time they keep making very silly decisions, and I don't like that they're trying to pass it off as if this agency wouldn't be completely ruthless, right? And I don't mean that you have to have a rated R movie, but they just don't seem deadly. They don't seem like the stakes, it doesn't seem like the stakes are actually that high because they're really not trying that hard to stop these people, right? I mean, there's just several moments in this movie where they had a clear opportunity to kill one of the characters that is giving them the problems that they're trying to solve and keep from releasing this supposedly critical information that should never be released. But yet they don't take advantage of those moments. And the way that characters get out of situations is just very cheesy. And again, I wouldn't mind if the movie set itself up to be that way, but it didn't. And it bothers me. There's just so much of this story that could be good, but it just isn't written that well. It's just disappointing, especially when it's coming from Spielberg. You have a little bit of an expectation, and I do think watching this movie, I saw some of the plot lines where I was like, oh, you know, this kind of does feel like an old way of telling stories, an old way of thinking, especially an 80s, 90s way of telling a story. But this story seemed like it just needed more, and it wasn't provided. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Normally, I try to just find the audience that would enjoy watching this movie, but I don't know what that audience would be. If you're just a die-hard alien lover, you might like this movie, right? But even then, I think they just tease you a lot with the alien aspect of this movie, right? The part that everyone came for and was interested in, they really don't show much of. And when they do, it's just short. It's just not very entertaining. I really don't know the audience that would enjoy it. Maybe if you're a passionate alien lover, but honestly, I don't know who would enjoy this movie. I really wouldn't recommend it to anybody. third is theme. What message or truth is a movie trying to convey? There's a message here about, what facts or truth belong to who, right? I mean, you have this secret information, and when do you declare that that information is something that belongs to everybody, not just you, right? And I don't know, it's not that interesting or that compelling, just because I don't know that many people would argue the other side about keeping it a secret. Most people want to know about secrets, so even if you think it could be kind of dangerous, most people are going to lean towards everybody should know because they want to know. Everybody wants to know secrets. So it's not that interesting of a theme, but it is present. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversations? The dialogue is not bad at all. There are a couple jokes, trying to break the tension in this movie, and they're not bad. They weren't exactly, I didn't laugh, not once, but they weren't cringy, they weren't hard to watch, right? The dialogue is pretty interesting. What they're talking about is interesting, other than the fact that it's just not enough. Not enough is given. It's too ambiguous for too long, and it just gets old. You're okay with it in the beginning, but then it's like, okay, give me some real information here. You're waiting for something to actually happen rather than the same information being repeated over and over and over again. Probably the most interesting dialogue is when Margaret is reading people and kind of talking about them in a way that no one else should know this information. Those moments throughout the movie are probably the most interesting points of dialogue. Overall, not that bad, with some good moments and not so great moments. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? The only person I'm going to talk about in this movie is Emily Blunt as Margaret. Wow, she was incredible, honestly. I mean, I knew she was a good actress already. I don't know that I have necessarily seen her in a lot of serious, hard roles. I've seen her in some comedy roles where I think she definitely does well with comedy, and you can tell that she's talented, but I can't think of a movie that she did that was very serious that I watched other than A Quiet Place, which she barely talks in the movie, so I don't know how much to give that. She really showed her talent in this movie, right? She stood out. The moments that she had emotion and was portraying this character being lost or just was the main focus on screen, she did a great job. She really elevated this movie. If her acting wasn't in it and she didn't bring such emotion to some of these scenes, this movie would be honestly pretty bad. She really takes some of these boring moments and adds some emotion that is very convincing and makes it more interesting. Six is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Just like the rest of this movie, honestly, hit or miss. There's some good parts, there's some bad parts. One of the good parts, I think, was the filmmaking itself. There's some interesting shots in this movie. I always enjoy that. I like when a movie feels unique by giving you just some interesting perspectives or camera movement, right? There's a long shot in here, a scene that is a very long shot scene. I like that. I like when they're long and continuous. That's interesting. There's some different perspectives, some camera movement that made me think, how did they do that? How did they film that camera movement there and still keep them looking good? I like when movies do that. It just gives it a unique feel, and they definitely had a couple shots in this movie that I enjoyed. The action in this movie was honestly not very good. One of the bigger problems is the fact that this movie does set itself up to be fairly serious. There's a little bit of comedy, but most of the movie is taking itself serious, and a lot of the action scenes just don't really make a whole lot of sense. They don't work. Either they're not that interesting or what's going on doesn't feel real. And the problem with that is the fact that you're trying to keep me locked into this feeling like a real scenario. But when I see things that couldn't possibly happen in real life, it just takes you out of it, ruins the moment, ruins the flow of the movie. And there's a couple moments here. I will specifically point out the train scene in this movie. It's terrible. It looks terrible. The CGI is bad. The situation makes no sense. There's just no way they're going to perform the things they perform, or even that specific thing is going to happen. Getting stuck on a train, a car stuck on a train just doesn't make any sense. That's not really how it works. It just didn't look good, it didn't feel good, and there's several action scenes throughout this movie that felt that way. The aliens themselves were just disappointing. They're not necessarily bad. They're just very stereotypical aliens, which there's nothing really wrong with that, but the problem is that is the focal point of this movie. That's the interesting part of this movie, and you barely see them, and when you do see them, they're just kind of exactly what you expect for the most part, outside of their tech, right? And that's where you start to get creative, is having an alien tech that you haven't seen before in a movie or just feels different, right? But the problem with this tech is that it just felt like a catch-all. Again, some of that poor writing comes into play because this device that they use for the movie, that is the alien tech that you get, it just does any and everything, and that's kind of exhausting, right? It's not really explained what it does, what its purpose is, or why, or its limits. It just exists to get the characters out of any situation possible, and just felt, honestly, pretty cheap. The emotion side, maybe a slight hint of emotion depending on what kind of person you are or what you're interested in, but for me, it didn't really exist. The movie's just not good enough to keep me gripped, to care about what's going on at that deep of a level. 7th is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes long. Way too long. Not interesting enough of an idea to fill out 2.5 hours. I mean, it could have, but not with the substance they provided. And even with having 2.5 hours to tell this story, they still end it on what is essentially a cliffhanger, where you just want to know. You're basically being teased for 2.5 hours to get to the moment you actually want, and then when they give you that moment, it's short, and then they cut it short and cut it right in the middle. It's awful. I don't know why they made that decision. It's just completely unsatisfying as a movie. So 2.5 hours is just way too long. For this kind of movie, if you were going to end it on such an abrupt note and not give the audience really what they came to watch, then at least don't waste 2.5 hours of their time. Make it an hour and 30 minutes or 40 minutes. 8th is soundtrack. There were good moments in this movie, but the problem is the movie didn't capitalize enough, right? It's not interesting enough. But there were moments that I noticed the music, and it definitely fit the theme of the aliens going on, and I don't know if it's necessarily memorable, but I think that's more because of the movie and less about the music itself. 9th is directing. Now I feel the director's in charge of the previous 8 aspects. They're the ones that have to put it all together, give it their stamp of approval, and make a really good movie. Now, the director of this movie is Steven Spielberg, and this was his 37th film, which is just crazy. It's so many movies, so bear with me. The 37 films that he has directed to this point are Firelight, Duel, The Sugarland Express, Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1941, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., Twilight Zone, the movie, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Always, Hook, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, The Lost World Jurassic Park, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, AI, Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, War of the Worlds, Munich, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, The Adventures of Tintin, Warhorse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, The BFG, The Post, Ready Player One, West Side Story, The Fablemans, and finally, Disclosure Day. That's not my first time reading that list. If you don't know Steven Spielberg, then you don't watch movies. The guy is probably the most famous director to ever exist. He's one of the most amazing filmmakers to ever exist, not only as a director, but as a producer, as a writer. He has just been involved in so many of the most famous films to ever exist. He is rightfully probably the single best filmmaker to ever contribute to film as an art form, really. That being said, this is not one of his best movies, right? I mean, he's actually done a good job of continuing to make great films throughout his entire career. Unlike somebody like Ridley Scott, who has amazing films, but then has some really just trash films in between. Spielberg is not one of those people. I mean, most of his movies are at least good, but a lot of them are great. And as he's gotten older, he hasn't lost his touch. He continues to make amazing movies. This just isn't one of them. He obviously likes the idea of aliens. He's made so many movies that pertain to the idea of aliens as a whole, so it definitely interests him. I just don't know that this was his best idea, right? And he's kind of used up, I don't know, his alien stories overall, but this one just wasn't that good. But of course, he's one of the best to ever do it. 10th is Time. Will it stand the test of time? I definitely don't think it will. It's just not that good of a movie, especially alien movies. There's been a lot of alien movies made, and there's been actually quite a few amazing, well done alien movies, and this just is not one of them. If I'm being honest, I think that if there was another director behind this movie, if it wasn't Spielberg, it was somebody else, but you gave this exact same movie, it would just be completely forgettable. No one would even remember it. The only reason it might have some sort of remembrance is because it's attached to Spielberg's filmography as a whole. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it an 80, the audience gives it a 70, and IMDb gives it a 67. I think 80 is too high. Like I said earlier, I do think that this movie is being received better because it is a Spielberg movie, because it just has that name attached to it. But honestly, it's not that good. I think if you put a name like M. Night Shyamalan, where he gets a lot of hate rather than praise, I think this movie would be absolutely dogged on and the ratings would be awful, even if it was the exact same movie that it is. It's just because Spielberg's name's under it. I think people are giving it credit. In all honesty, I think this movie really is, I'm closer to the 67 range, right? It's just not that good, maybe 70. It's just a mid movie, but also I kind of lean towards bad, right? It has some things that I enjoy, some moments that I can give it credit for, but overall it's just so forgettable, very boring, doesn't do enough to keep your attention and or keep you coming back to remember this movie or have it stand out. So definitely isn't the worst movie I've ever seen, right? But it's not very good. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2026, out of 7 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 6th. Just below The Devil Wears Prada 2 and above Scary Movie. It's above Scary Movie, honestly, because of the tier ranking system, where I tried to put it into tiers so that it takes my bias out of it a little bit and gives the general audience some value, and then me ranking them within the tiers gives it my own personal bias, but they are in 2 different tiers. The general audience seem to enjoy Disclosure Day more than Scary Movie. I personally would rather watch Scary Movie. It's made for entertainment, and I guess apparently it only appealed to a niche audience, and I was that audience. But overall, people, I guess on average, enjoy Disclosure Day better than Scary Movie. Now it is below The Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't think these are even close. The Devil Wears Prada 2 is made for entertainment and does it well, where the Disclosure Day is not made for entertainment and definitely was not that entertaining. Cinematically, out of 7 total movies, it is going to be 6th. Again, just below Backrooms and above Scary Movie. It's above Scary Movie, obvious reasons. It was made to be cinematic, has some cinematic aspects that are done well, some that aren't done well, but overall brings a little bit more as an art form than Scary Movie, which is just basically a bunch of, comedic sketches packed together and not really a story at all. So they're not really comparable or that close. I do have it below Backrooms. Backrooms is just, in all honesty, much more creative with what it had, right? And even though I don't give it a whole lot of credit, because I do think that there is some things lacking with Backrooms, what was present there was really well done, where there are some things that were present in Disclosure Day that I just didn't enjoy, not nearly on the same level as Backrooms. I think Backrooms was just more efficient storytelling overall. For the decade of the 2020s, out of 79 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 53rd, just below Gladiator 2 and above Scary Movie. It's above Scary Movie for the exact same reasons as before. I have it below Gladiator 2, just personal preference. I could watch Gladiator 2 again just for the action sequences. I don't know that I would ever really watch Disclosure Day ever again, so really that's just where my opinion comes into play. I like Gladiator 2 more as a movie. Now, cinematically, out of 79 total movies, it is going to be 55th, just below The Damned and above The Amateur. They're in their own little category because all three of these movies are just movies that had aspects to them that I enjoyed, and then other parts that I did not enjoy. I thought The Amateur didn't capitalize on what was interesting in that movie, where Disclosure Day is kind of the opposite, right? It did capitalize on the moments that were interesting. There just wasn't enough. And so I give Disclosure Day a little bit more credit because I think it's more memorable, has at least some memorable scenes, where The Amateur had potential and kind of capitalized on it in some instances, but not nearly enough to be memorable. I do have Disclosure Day below The Damned, and I just really like The Damned. I like the atmosphere. The first half of that movie is honestly a pretty good movie. I really liked it. It was surprisingly well done, but then the last half just turns into a basic horror movie. So I just think there was more for me to like in The Damned. I think it brings more to the art form, just to being a little bit more unique and more suspenseful and atmospheric, where Disclosure Day's moments that are atmospheric and have good qualities are just take up less time and aren't as common as The Damned, where I give it a whole half of a movie, where Disclosure Day is just a couple scenes. All time, out of 97 total movies on the entertainment side, is going to be 69th, just below Gladiator 2 and above Scary Movie. It's there for the exact same reasons as before. Cinematically, out of 97 total movies, it is going to be 72nd, just below The Damned and above The Amateur. It's there for the exact same reasons as before. Okay, that's all I've got for Disclosure Day. Honestly disappointing. I think part of that is just the fact that, it's a Spielberg movie, right? You're expecting it to be a lot more memorable because he has made so many classics and so many fantastic movies. And though there are moments of genius in this movie, right? There's the moments where you see it, where you're like, wow, this is a good scene. This is an interesting scene. Like the one shot where you're discovering that she is different and she can see into people and she doesn't even realize it, speaking different languages, and then goes and makes the weird sounds on TV. Like that moment, that scene is really great, and you can see the potential of this movie, but then it just dissipates. If you have watched this movie, were you as disappointed as I was? Did you feel like this movie just kind of missed the mark? Please put a comment down below what you thought, whether you liked it or disliked it. Thank you for watching so far, right? I mean, I just enjoy interacting with you guys. It's the reason I made this channel. Wanted to just meet other people who enjoy making movies, whether they care about my opinion or not. Don't care. I care about your opinion, and I'm a small channel, so I read every single comment that comes my way. So please start up a conversation. It'd be great. I'd love to do that with you guys, or just simply comment a movie you want me to review. And I've got a big list I'll be going through, so I will get to it eventually and tag you in it. So please, put down a movie below so that I can keep adding to my list and keep reviewing movies. But otherwise, I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.